Radar Update. My name is Daniel Vallis from InformedChristians.com, a website ministry devoted to discerning current events from a Christian perspective. This is a watch, not a prediction. We're just looking at current events that are going on and trying to figure out where they're heading and trying to be sober and vigilant and to take heed of what is going on in our world so we have a better understanding of what we should be doing right now. Over our past few videos and past few days, we've covered a lot of the signs and calls for peace and security that the world has been making and what the Bible has warned us about. When you hear them say peace and safety, you know sudden destruction is incoming. Very shortly after some of the most prominent calls for peace and safety was when the Russian plane got shot down. That event has kicked off a whole bevy of geopolitical events, and things have definitely increased in tension just since then. So we can see that we are rapidly heading toward that as if there wasn't already a lot of tension already in the world. But things are not getting better, and they're not getting better quick, too. And we've also looked at how right now we are in the days of Noah, what you could consider the days of Noah from the major anniversary dates that are recorded in the Bible and how it correlates to the Hebrew calendar at the moment and in our calendar. Jesus Christ said no man knows the day or hour, including Satan and the enemy. But he did say you will see the day approaching. And taking that with the warnings of peace and safety when he says when you hear them say this, sudden destruction is coming, that automatically narrows down the time frame real quick and we could see it in context of everything else. So we know time is short. We can see the day approaching, but we do not know when, but it looks like it is nigh even at the doors. We also see Hanukkah upcoming, which celebrates when the Jews regain control of Jerusalem. So there's a lot of symbolic importance and weight with this time that's coming up real quickly. So that has also caught our attention. And we see geopolitical events moving toward events might repeat and echo some of those same events. Other significant things that are happening, though, on the same day that the Russian plane was shot down, a Nazi-inspired ads for The Man in the High Castle were pulled from the New York subway. That's an Amazon television show, but they did this major promotion of putting this Nazi-inspired imagery throughout this particular subway system in the Times Square. Very blatant, very colorful, primarily in the reds and blues. And we've covered a lot recently, just within this month of November, how strong symbolism and strong messaging, they've been pushing this message of the red and blue. It's the meeting of the fire and ice, what is used a lot in the occult ideology that Hitler adhered to. I thought it very interesting with this event, this PR stunt, which they did deliberately to get into the public's main view. It also portrays that same clash between the red and the blue. And where did they do that? In the underground. Hades. Symbolism to that too as well, which goes along with all the other messages that have been sent out. And on top of that, it was done in Times Square. Time is being involved too as well. And the TV series itself deals with alternate timelines, Nazis, America, and the world. It's so much is coming together. The enemy doesn't have to hide it. They're almost blatantly saying it in plain English. But a lot of people confuse it for entertainment because they're so distracted with other things. They don't focus and see the trends in the messaging of how tightly they've been weaved. And that's what we've been covering lately. But alternate timelines, that's another thing we've been dealing lately with. Another thing to catch our attention is that on December 5th will be 9/23 on the Jewish religious calendar. They have a civil calendar and the religious calendar. On the civil calendar, we're in the 3rd month. On the religious calendar, we're on the 9th month. So a 9/23 will be coming up on December 5th. And a lot of people have remarked and commented on the strong symbolism and media programming of 9/23 in major media productions. And a lot of people have suspected that it was to September and then nothing happened on that. But some people are suspecting, what if it's pointing to the Jewish calendar, which is also lunar, and we saw on the Economist cover how that is a lunar marker, has a lunar marker on there to use that in the calendar calculations. So are they pointing to this time as significant changes, which incidentally is the day before the Gregorian calendar Hanukkah date? So is it a signal of major changes to the enemy that they're making? Who knows, but it certainly does seem to go into context with everything else that is coming out right now. But it's just something to keep an eye on and in the back of our mind. And of course, just 2 weeks ago were the events in Paris. We covered those in our Paris City of Lights videos and following videos of the heavy occult symbolism and importance of this city, Paris, and a lot of things and themes that they were pointing to. So now I find it very suspicious that 2 weeks later, 150 heads of state and government are meeting there for a climate control conference. Right. I may talk about all that, but I find it very suspicious that they're suddenly meeting there in Paris of all places. And this is the largest diplomatic conference ever organized aside from the United Nations General Assembly sessions that take place in New York. Think about that for a moment. This is going to be one of the largest gatherings of heads of state and government, 150 heads of state gathering here at this time. Now, many of the world leaders are only going to be there for the first 2 days, the 30th and the 1st. The whole conference goes from November 30th through December 11th, which when we look on our timeline, places it right in the center of the hot activity that we've been looking at, and right in the window of CERN activity. And keep in mind, CERN is on the France border. Is there an alternative motive of why they are gathering there in Paris now? Who knows? I find it very suspicious, though. Only 2 months ago, a movie came out in Germany called Look Who's Back, and is about Hitler waking up in modern day time. He had slept for 66 years, but he woke up and assumed life. But this whole movie, which was a comedy, was released only about 2 months ago. And already, it's top of the German box office. Very popular over there. It's been seen by more than 1.7 million people. The book that it's based on was also a surprise hit in 2012. But a lot has changed in just the 3 years between the novel when it came out and the movie. And there's been a lot of geopolitical upset with the refugees and Islam and Muslims and the EU changes and the economy, and so much has changed in the world. Is interesting, they remarked when they were filming this movie last year, the Hitler character would just walk around everyday Germany in full costume and everything, and he said they were shocked by the positive response that they got from the average German person, because there's a lot of tension and built up, and the world is looking for a strong leader. That is the temperature and climate of the world right now. The world wants a strong leader. All this panic and fear and anxiety, this desire for peace and safety, that's being fostered for a reason, so that people will crave a strong leader. A lot of people say, if Hitler came back, people wouldn't accept him. Yes, they would. There's a lot of people who want him to come back now because they want a strong leader who will take care of problems, who will fix the economy, who will fix their fears, who will give them peace and safety, and they're willing to overlook all sorts of stuff to make that happen. They did it the first time, and you look at what happens in American politics, happens there all the time too. People want a strong leader, and so that's why you will see chaos, fear, panic, and terrorism fostered, so that people will crave and call for it. It's that whole order out of chaos thing. They create the chaos so that they can present a solution to the world, and so that the world will accept it with open arms. And in our Antichrist Returns video, we talked about how an Antichrist Hitler figure will return again. And just looking at the time right now, we had talked about before in our previous videos as well, the Antichrist is going to change time, and the Bible says that he's going to be allowed to change time for time, times, and half a time, which appears to either be 3.5 years or that particular looped time segment. Lord willing, I may try to explain that better in a future video, but not here. But if it jumps to an alternate timeline, which is a lot of the media propaganda that's been going out, that Satan's been conditioning people with to help overcome the shock value so they don't run to the Bible, but he's been conditioning them that it will be some type of alternate timeline that is jumped to and possibly looped to try to create his fake form of eternity. But I was just punching some numbers today. If there was a jump back in time from December 9th, let's say, just because that's on the high end of the timeline that we're looking at, going back 1,260 days in an alternate timeline would put them just about a month before the 2012 London Olympics. And there's a lot of symbolism and blatant occult ceremonies right there. But I just find it very interesting that it would put them right practically on the doorstep of that event going on if there was a jump back right now. Now, April 12th, 2014, that will be 1,260 days to the celestial sign, the Revelation 12 celestial sign that occurs on September 23rd, 2017. So I would put that at the high end that they would go. Not beyond that, but anytime beyond that looks like fair game. Looks like they're aiming for somewhere in that area. Now, as to the exact way this will play out, we don't know. But Scripture does give a couple of guidelines. The Bible tells us that there will be warning signs. You'll hear them call for peace and safety. That's just one example. You're going to see different signs of the perilous times that are beginning. So there are warning signs, and we see them right now going on, so we know sudden destruction is very, very imminent. Then the next event that we know will happen will be the falling away. That's a military term. We have an article on our website called What is the Falling Away? That is when Heaven's diplomatic corps is going to be evacuated. And then once that happens, then the man of sin will be revealed, who will be the Antichrist. Somehow he will come onto the scene. It may be hours right after it. I suspect it's going to be very, very close to that same event because he's going to try to explain what in the world just happened. The Bible also tells us that when he comes onto the scene, he's going to uproot 3 of the kings, the 3 nations, up by the roots. He's going to completely destroy them. And it appears that he might do this before he signs a covenant with many. So when will he do his time things? We don't know. But I suspect it'll be toward the beginning, because when you look at the book of Revelation, and especially the global earthquakes that start happening pretty soon, I suspect the infrastructure at CERN won't be around for long if they don't use it real quick. And they know that too. So I suspect it will be used very early on before the major earth changes start happening. And Lord willing, I may do a video where I postulate on that a little bit more. So this would be just some of the major stages that I see happening. And right now we find ourselves right between the warning signs. We've seen the calls for peace and safety, so we know sudden destruction is very imminent. So now we are readying ourselves. We had heard the cry that the bridegroom cometh, so we are getting ourselves ready, making sure we are purified and clean and trim off what should not be in our life, and make sure we are ready and watchful and living as though Christ is returning and living for eternity, not this world that's going to burn up. So that is where we find ourselves now. A lot has been coming together. We know sudden destruction is incoming. We don't know what the days ahead hold, but they do not look like they're going to get better. And of course the Bible tells us that the birth pangs will only increase in intensity. We are there. Are you listening? Do you have an ear to hear what the Spirit saith to the churches? Maranatha.